Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Only the most broken people can be great leaders. Hey there, my name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Huge special thanks to our friends at Marvel and Disney Studios Canada for giving us the opportunity to watch this movie early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things Geekcentric. Now, I am so stoked. I'm beyond stoked to get into this review. But before we do, I do want to let you know, if you're a huge Star Wars fan like we are, we actually currently have our watch club for Star Wars Andor going on right now with our first 2, maybe 3 episodes out right now, covering episodes 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 and 7 to 9, where we go through we go deep on our theories and speculation, as well as our thoughts on each episode. And then, of course, when episode 10, 11, and 12 come out, we're going to have one more to kind of wrap up that watch club. So keep your ears and your eyes peeled for that, because there's a rebellion growing, and you can be a part of it. We also have our weekly This Week in Geek episodes out every single Wednesday, where we break down our thoughts on the latest news and trailers surrounding all the things that we love. All right, let's get to this review. Joining me for this dive into the depths of a new kingdom is the leader of the nation of Geekcentric, Justin, the Jade Jaguar Lawrence.
Damn. Wow. What an intro, man. That is...
Have I made your head too big? Is your head too big now?
Yes, I feel like the leader now,
yeah.
Essentially, because, the leader has a big head from the MCU.
Oh, okay, there you go.
It's a deep cut joke. Yeah.
There we go.
I am excited, dude. I have been chomping at the bit to talk about this movie with someone. Given that you and I were the only two that went and saw this screening, I am excited to get into all of the things that I loved about this movie. Spoiler alert, I guess.
Yeah. We're a few days removed from the screening, but I'm still reeling. I honestly can't stop.
I haven't stopped thinking about it.
I know.
Yeah, I haven't stopped thinking about it. It's yeah.
All right. Well, let me get to the synopsis for the movie. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you already know, but. In Marvel Studios' Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Queen Ramonda, Shuri, M'Baku Okoye, and the Dora Milaje fight to protect their nation from intervening world powers in the wake of King T'Challa's death. As the Wakandans strive to embrace their next chapter, the heroes must band together with the help of War Dog Nakia and Everett Ross to forge a new path for the Kingdom of Wakanda. Black Panther Wakanda Forever stars Angela Bassett, Letitia Wright, Denai Guerrera, Lupita Nyong'o, Florence Kasumba, Michaela Cole, Dominic Thorne, Winston Duke, Tenoch Huerta Mejia, Martin Freeman, Mabel Cadena, and Alex Livinalli, and is directed by Ryan Coogler and produced by Kevin Feige and Nate Moore. The movie opens in theaters November 11th, 2022. Justin, let's start with what worked. And again, I think this is another one of those reviews where I feel like this might be the majority of the conversation. But let's start off with what I think was maybe one of the more challenging parts of this movie, given the sad passing of Chadwick Boseman, and how Ryan Coogler was in the middle of writing this script when he had to alter it. And I think he absolutely pulled it off. I think the movie... beyond, handling themes of loss, pain, and regret and revenge really well, I think Ryan Coogler helped to reshape this story after the loss of Chadwick Boseman so well. At the same time, I felt like the movie has so much in it and it doesn't feel unbalanced. We get to see each of these characters, and they really do get their time to sort of mourn, but also grow at the same time.
100%. And there's a reason why this movie is 2 hours and 41 minutes. It does have a long runtime. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, after sitting with it, I did say, like, yeah, the movie is long. but it doesn't feel misbalanced, as you said. It is very much about respecting both parts of what this movie is meant to do. And I think the story delivers on the promise of a proper send-off to T'Challa, and that's justified based on the circumstances of the situation that Wakanda's in. It uses his loss as an anchor for a growing theme of trauma that is played out through the rest of the movie, and how they carry their life without their king, and more importantly without Black Panther. It's an emotional story that deals with with loss, legacy, and healing, like you described, and some great callbacks to T'Challa and Chadwick that feels very poignant and spiritual, and captures who he was as a person. And I think there's an authenticity to that at play throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, it's depicting two of the most powerful nations in the world, and just how different but also similar they are. And I think that's kind of the theme of the movie and what it's trying to represent. And I just wanted to, throughout the movie, there was never a moment that dragged too long. Like, I just wanted to keep learning more about, both Wakanda and Talokan. And I think, the movie also addresses what it needs to in order to establish the feel right away. And my eyes were just glued to the screen the entire time, even just with like the dialogue, and even if there was nothing on the screen at times, there were just words being spoken. It was instantly captivating, and it actually caught me off guard, the way that the movie actually just starts. It just throws you immediately into kind of where we left off.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, there's words that you're very captivated with, but we'll talk about performances when we get there that I think really do hammer home the balance that this movie has between world building and, a real heart and emotion. Like, I loved how Wakanda and Talokan were pitted against one another, as they both share so many similarities, as you were saying. And, I love that these two cultures are facing off against one another based on belief, and it just allows them to put a mirror up to help create a larger picture of conflict between the two, while also really rooting it back to the theme of trauma, right? I think that, the introduction of Namor's character was unbelievable. Absolutely. And his arc in comparison to that, to someone like Shuri, I think it really is a war between two nations. It feels like a war between two countries going at it. It is overly emotional too in that in their depiction of that, and the action is top notch. So it's like it all has the right parts to help tell this what seemingly feels a very real story. I know we're talking about fictional nations, Wakanda, Talokan, but there is such a history and such an attention to detail that these nations feel real.
Yeah, and I think bring tissues. Both Justin and I. We're tearing up quite a bit. I've actually never seen you cry as much in a movie, Justin. Not that we've gone to too many sad movies together, but yeah, you were tearing up quite a bit. And
well, I'll tell you this much, as the cry expert of our podcast, I'll take that as a probably a compliment more than an insult.
Absolutely, it's a compliment. 100%. It means you're in touch with your feelings. But listen, as somber as this movie gets, it's not without the action scenes, and I think these moments really got the heart pumping. The way the warriors fight in this movie is so intense on both sides, and I love that you can see the various styles in the choreography between the different groups. Like, you've got the Jabari tribe that fight differently than the Dora Milaje, but then you also see the people of Talokan and even Namor himself have different styles by which they go about combat, and I just thought it was so cool. They all move so differently. It adds so much to the action of the film, where a lot of times in a lot of, even within these Marvel movies, I think there's a lot of times where we kind of feel like, oh, that was a bit samey. That action scene felt like the other action scene in the movie, which felt like the other action scene in the movie. And this one, it doesn't. There's so much sort of variety that they add to these different moments, and a lot of that has to do with the choreography. So shout out to the entire team on all that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the thing about it too is that as you're describing and talking about visual effects, the choreography, the camera work, everything that went into that felt really real and tactile and,
Yes.
and fit the world that we're living in at this for this story. So it didn't feel like overly visual effects heavy. But needless to say, I understand why the VX team was pulled from the She-Hulk finale, because this movie like spared no expense with big visual effects numbers and moments that will definitely stand out. But apart from that, what was really gorgeous from the visual standpoint was actually the costuming. Much like the first movie, was the outstanding cultural elements that were just grounded in this movie in a sense of realism. That honors and respects cultures that it's inspired from, and that comes from things like the costuming, which was from Ruth Carter.
I wanted to shout her out.
Who won the Oscar in 2019. Who won the Oscar in 2019. And I think that, just again, incredible job at bringing the vibrant cultural nuances that define both Wakanda and Talokan in the wardrobe. It's absolutely beautiful. And I think the same for Hannah Beaker, like the production designer who won the Oscar as well in 2019. She designed such an immersive and captivating environments. She went deeper with Wakanda, and then she went really bold and very authentic for Talokan. She was actually on the red carpet talking about the 450 page plus Bible for Wakanda that she made.
Wow.
And a 500 plus page book for Talokan, that were their North Star. It contained all the notes, all the historical and cultural importance of why they were doing what they were doing. And again, I just props to them for bringing in an authenticity to help define. I think, as we were talking about before, making these two nations feel real. This makes them feel real,
absolutely.
right? Is that commitment to telling their story and making it feel lived in.
And I think lived in is a really good way to describe it. I think it's such a stunning movie. The use of color, the use of light, and then sometimes lack thereof light. I think, the movie gets visually dark at times, but it was purposeful and really adds to the environment. Whereas, sometimes you'll be watching a movie, you'll be like, I can't even see anything on the screen. Shout out to Game of Thrones. But I thought that this one, for the moments where it does get dark, it just adds so much to it. But it also adds this sort of edge of your seat, inviting, sort of pulling you into the screen mentality where you just want to be like, I kind of want to just go a little further into the depths. But I just wanted to kind of come back to what you were talking about with the costuming. Just the different tribes of Wakanda having their distinctive look. The funeral attire, I think, was stunning, and you see that in the trailer. Everyone in white, just like against the bright, vivid Wakandan cityscape, is absolutely beautiful. And yeah, dude, the people of Talokan, like, so much more than just the blue people who we've seen before. They implement traditional Mayan colors and the jade and aquatic elements, as well as like the featherwork in the headdresses. I just thought was so phenomenal. And then their masks that have water in them so they can breathe. It just shows like intention, but it also
hyper attention.
But it also kind of helps you to understand the characters in terms of their ranking. Again, this is a movie about an army and war, and you can tell that there's two characters that are just based off their look, they're a higher rank than the rest of like the Talokanian army, and obviously we do get to see them a little bit more in the movie.
Oh no, I totally agree. Again, it just feels so authentic. But going back to your point about the use of lighting, like there's a shot that's in the trailer of the Dora Milaje as they step from shadow into light. And like, even though I knew I've seen that scene in the context of the movie, it is so good, right? And it just, like you said, it pulls you in. You're like, oh shit, here we go.
Absolutely. I think the only place that I could possibly look at, and this might be my only criticism for this whole review, so strap in, everybody. I think the only place that I think I found a little bit that took me out of it was during some of the heavy action sequences when characters are sort of flipping or flying through the air. There are some moments where you still get that rubbery effect that we've seen in the MCU. Again, I think people forget, though, that visual effects aren't just for action sequences, but it's also the world building. And I think for the biggest moments outside the action, seeing the Talakenian people riding massive whales, swimming alongside orcas is just, it was so cool. And like, I didn't, as much of a spectacle that is, I never found that was anything that took me out of the world. Like I completely believed that was actually happening. And so I think, the backgrounds of the world are so well designed. I think as silly as it can seem that we're talking about an underwater world, at no point in time did I feel less invested because of the look of everything. It was just some of those moments when they are doing kind of the really heavy action stuff that I was kind of like, okay,
I think it goes,
it gets,
yeah. It's like it's harder to hide
Yes.
it, right? At least, with the choreography and the fighting that you're talking about and that you referenced before, this is hand to hand. This is intimate camera work, right? As soon as the camera has to pull back and reveal some sort of big spontaneous thing that's happening, that's obviously visual effects heavy, things get a little rubbery, as you described. But honestly, that goes without saying, I think, with some of these movies. But where this movie shines is, as we said, costume, production design, world building elements, the things that are tactile and textual, and the choreography. These are real things. These are things that are the intimate parts of the movie. But again, the way they used visual effects, it's not so big and so out of scale. They used it appropriately based on the story. So
absolutely. I think the other big major shining aspect of this movie is the cast. Let's start off.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to kind of go through the list here, but let's start off with Tenoch Huerta as Namor. He is like, where'd this guy, like, I know he's been in a lot of Spanish films and TV shows, but I was so phenomenally impressed by this guy. The character, from a character standpoint, he's so swift, he's so calculated, but even in the performance, like, you can literally see him thinking through his actions in each moment. And that's not an easy thing for an actor to pull off, is the idea of like, I'm actually thinking about this, but not in like a goofy or like silly way. And I honestly, I didn't think with his winged feet that I'd be like, oh, this guy is scary, but he is terrifying. He's really a true threat in this movie, and he's one of the better MCU villains because, again, we get a solid understanding of where he's coming from. The movie actually gives us some background for his character, and he did such a good job of portraying the character, that is just as hurt and frustrated by the outside world as the Wakandans are. And I think by aligning his character with them, it really does help us to kind of get behind sort of some of the decisions that he makes in the movie.
He said it himself in an interview. Namor is not the villain. As you're pointing out, what his performance and that trauma that he's dealing with, which is perfectly mirrored to that of Shuri, he's not a villain. He is a true anti-hero. I feel like I can understand his motives, his desires, and what he wants. I think it's actually incredibly relatable, and I think that this is the best introduction to an MCU character that is a veteran. This is our first introduction to Namor, and he's one of the most original Marvel comic characters. So he's classic. So I love the way they're handling his character in this movie. I think it's spot on, and Tenoch was the perfect casting for it. It's amazing.
So good. This is Shuri's movie, though. Let's talk about Letitia Wright. I think instantly hitting us with a performance that is a huge step up from any other moment we've seen with this character. I was honestly blown away with how much she's matured from the first one and since even Infinity War and Endgame, and rightly so, given how much she's gone through by the beginning of the film.
For sure. I think, like, she delivered an intense emotional performance that felt very rooted in a genuine loss. And I think that she was able to manifest her own real sense of loss for Chadwick in this portrayal of Shuri. And yeah, I think you're right. She totally seems more mature. Also very much like Angela Bassett's performance, they both were able to come together as a family and mourn the loss of Chadwick together through their character portrayals, which were both outstanding in this movie. It felt like they were really a family grieving.
Yeah, and I think, as somber as that sounds, you're right. It's some of the best performances we've ever seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I think while Shuri is more mature, she's also just as charming as she was in the previous movies. And I think both her and Okoye and Riri Williams, the three of them are kind of at the heart of all the humor throughout the movie. There's some really great moments of laughter, especially at Riri's expense, which honestly were so welcome given the weight of the story surrounding those moments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had that written too. And they never felt out of place. They never felt like they were forced. No. It was all the right amount. It made sense. And it was absolutely through Okoye, Riri, and Shuri that you got to see that. It's a lot of fun, and I agree with you. I think it was needed. It didn't stay in that somber, heavy-hearted story. It injected some humor that was welcomed for sure.
And the scene we're actually talking about, you can actually find online. They did put it out early if you want to watch it, but maybe watch it within the context of the movie so that you can really kind of feel that relief that we felt watching. And Riri Williams' introduction,
Dominic Thorne was fantastic. She felt extremely grounded, extremely relatable, passionate as well, and I'm very excited to see more of her character in the MCU. I can't wait for Ironheart. I think Riri Williams, she's going to be a big deal. She's going to be pretty important. So
huge. Honestly, she was so Marvel, if you're listening to this is how you bring in a character to an existing story and make her more than a MacGuffin. I'm looking at you, Multiverse of Madness. I cannot wait for more America Chavez, but I am so stoked for Ironheart. She's so confident in what she's doing, and after sort of some convincing, she just takes to the world so well, and I'm just excited to see more of her. Again, I think her chemistry, like we were talking about with Shuri, is so lovely because it's very sibling-esque, and at no point in time did she feel unnecessary to the storyline. Like the way that she's brought in makes sense and works and doesn't feel tacked on. Dude, she was so great in this movie.
Well, I loved how you called out the relationship between her and Shuri. And I think that, again, as we find Shuri in a place of grieving the loss of T'Challa, with her new relationship with Riri, she's able to be a mentor to her. And really, at the end of the day, be a bigger sister to her is similar to that of how she looked at T'Challa with herself, right? Like, she was able to do her best work because T'Challa believed in her, and what Riri needs is someone that can believe in her. So, there's such a sisterhood connection between them that feels real. And then Okoye was just, she was great, and she also delivered some emotional performances. And I loved her range throughout the entire movie. But I feel like I'm dancing around the character that I want to talk about, and that's Ramonda. Dude. Angela Bassett delivered on all levels with her performance in this movie. You could feel the emotion in her performance. She was a mother grieving for the loss of her son and her king. She was so captivating every time she was on screen. I honestly think she's going to get nominated for Best Supporting Actress. I think she will get nominated for it. Here's me obviously hoping that she does show up on that list, because it is probably one of the most outstanding performances I've seen this year in a supporting role. Just captivating.
She speaks as the ruler of Wakanda, and it's so stunningly captivating. Like, those are the moments, Justin, that when I'm thinking to this movie, that's the first scenes I go back to is her talking. And you see it in the trailers.
That moment in the trailer is but one.
Oh my,
it's insane,
dude. But then, like you were saying, she's also a mother, and even when she's a mom, you still feel her words just as much as who she's speaking to. And yeah, dude, she gave the most powerful performance in the entire movie. She also looked badass. I think she still, she holds her ground. I was so excited to see her in What If, and kind of see what she does in What If, and even here you're just like, yeah, no, she's freaking incredible. She deserves any and all recognition for this performance, and I hope she does win all the awards. Absolutely. I think, the only other folks that we kind of I want to call out at least. I thought Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia. I think she's certainly not the focus of the movie, but her role in the film, I thought, was to kind of help us both as an audience as well as the characters in this story move through some of the most challenging emotional moments in the movie. And I thought she was phenomenal for that. And I was just so happy to see her back with this cast.
No, for sure. I think Nakia's character very much represents the person who runs away from their problems and gets away and doesn't want to deal and remove and focus somewhere else. And I think that everyone who is dealing with this loss and this trauma deals it in different ways. And I think, her character very much captures that. And like you said, her involvement in the story and in the bigger picture becomes far more interesting as the movie progresses, which helps. There's such a stacked cast that we've gone through here. Another person I wanted to call out was Winston Duke, M'Baku, who, you were talking about Shuri being mature and growing up. I very much got that from M'Baku's character and his portrayal this time around. He's still that big tough guy, but he seems to have more heart. He's got more wisdom. He's listening more, and he's recognizing the leader he could be. And I think that that's the influence T'Challa had on him, is to be the better leader for the Jabari nation. And shout out to Winston Duke for just being able to really breathe so much into this movie as a supporting character. He was sincere, he was authentic, he was very wise and heartfelt, but also being sarcastic and then comedic and tough. And he was just all around great in this movie.
And I think you're absolutely right in the sense that the loss of their king and the loss of Chadwick, I think, for both the characters and the people portraying the characters, it helped. It just sort of it causes them all to this story to break down all of their characters, and we get to see different sides of them. I think just like M'Baku, I think Okoye, she's incredibly badass. She's always been incredibly badass, but we also get to explore, her insecurity at times in this movie. We get to explore her breaking down, but also, we get to see her funny side even more in this. And I think even at the expense of Martin Freeman as Everett K. Ross, who's back for this movie, it's lovely to see just how much he cares for the people of Wakanda after everything he went through in the first film. And I thought Martin Freeman did a really good job with some of the light comic relief and sort of, if you're looking for that MCU connection, that's where you're going to find it, is really through him. He's going to be kind of the one that sort of ties it all together. But thought he did a good job as well. Okay, before we get to our final thoughts, dude, the music. What, Ludwig? What are you doing, my guy? Ludwig, along with his partner Serena Goranson, outdid themselves with this one. I don't know what the audible version of being mesmerized is, but that's what it was with the music in this movie, dude. Like the Black Panther themes, that are just, they're fused with, obviously you got the 808 drums from before and the obviously this is very mournful strings, but also the sounds and the music for the Talakanian tribe and Namor were just so cool, dude. It was just awesome. It's great to see how Goranson always finds a way to sort of just blend the score with the soundtrack. Shout out to Riri, not Riri Williams, but Rihanna as well. And I just found that through all of it, it honestly blends together so seamlessly. And he's so creative with the ways that he sort of makes these sounds. I'm blown away.
Oh, dude.
I'm absolutely blown away by the music.
And going back to what we were talking about, costume, set design, they won the Oscars in 2019. I think they're going to win the Oscar this year for this movie.
Yeah.
And much like that, Gorson won the Oscar in 2019 for Best Original Score for Black Panther. I think he's going to win it for this. The moments are accentuated by his score. It elevates the intensity, the emotion throughout. It has all the right cultural tones. And that's what I love about Ludwig, is that he really does dive in to bring some sort of relevancy or connectivity from the story into it. Like we've listened to his work from The Mandalorian that is very tribal and primitive, and then you flip that with Boba Fett that also has that, but it's a different sense, right? It's more indigenous in its capturing of sort of the Australian, New Zealand sort of style, right? There's just a way to really make it relatable, and that's what's celebrated about Black Panther's original score, right? And here it's just elevated that much more, and with Talokan as an option now to help dive into a new cultural avenue with the music to help represent that culture. He's exploring it. There's Spanish guitars. There's all of this stuff that feels so purposeful and meaningful, and in many ways runs parallel with the themes that we hear for Wakanda. I absolutely loved it. Like you said, whatever the hell the word is for mesmerizing in an audible fashion, count me in, because I was totally there. I was immersed by the musical score.
And apparently I was watching some of the red carpet or gold carpet or purple carpet. I don't know what color carpet they had there. Was it purple? Premiere. And apparently he and his partner actually traveled to Mexico and recorded with some musical archaeologists who've been researching what Mayan music could have sounded like. And apparently they discovered that some of the instruments found in the various graves that they were researching were things like turtle shells and seashells and other instruments from the ocean. And this is the kind of dedication and sort of uniqueness that I think is so important with his music, and what makes his music so creative, but also how authentic it is
100%.
For what he's creating. Yeah. And I think the same can be said for everything that everyone is doing in this movie. I think Ryan Coogler, again, just kind of pulling it back, he pays so much attention to the authenticity that's what pulls you in. That's what keeps you in this movie, even when you're seeing some things that are, MCU or impossible to believe. It's just it helps to create these worlds so much more. And I'm just, dude, I'm so impressed by the fact that he was able to create what he created with what he was given.
No, I totally agree. I think this really comes down to Ryan Coogler's direction. I think he's put the right people in place that are going to, as you say, bring the authenticity, bring the real, do their research, understand the story that they're telling, and understand the cultures that they're referencing, so that it does feel very rooted and connected, because that is his commitment to telling this story. I think this movie definitely shows that he's a masterful director who knows how to work with others and just trust them to do their best work. And I think that's what anyone really wants from a boss, to a certain degree, right?
I honestly, I cannot wait to see more of his films in general, but also within the MCU. Let's get to our final overall rating, which we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 purple heart-shaped herbs.
Well, if it isn't already clear to our listeners, I like this movie. We liked it. It was incredibly powerful, deeply emotional, while also giving us all the Marvel cinematic goodness. It handles loss, grief, and revenge with a maturity and, as we've mentioned numerous times, an authenticity that will connect with all audiences. Much like the first Black Panther, this film is steeped in culture, family, and spectacle, but with new layers, with the introduction of Namor and Talokan. From beautiful costume work to outstanding production design and sets and world building and a bombastic musical score, Wakanda Forever is a definitive and very poignant film for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The entire cast, as we were mentioning, are outstanding. They delivered emotionally impactful performances, and in many ways, I think you can look at their performances as a cathartic experience that allowed many of them to deal with their own emotions and their own feelings with the loss of Chadwick. But they also knew the importance of Black Panther. They knew what it meant for the community of kids and the Black community and representation of African culture and just culture in general. Mm-hmm. And what they built with Chadwick could not just go away away because of his loss. It would be a disservice to his name. And what they did, what was built for all to appreciate, it needed to be continued. So with the returning cast and the new cast, they all brought it, and it elevates the movie. And as much as we're talking about cathartic experiences for the cast, it was also that for Ryan Coogler, who delivers a film that is very personal and deeply meaningful. I think it could not have been an easy task, but I believe his North Star was to honor the legacy of Chadwick and T'Challa. And this film does that beautifully without ever being overly heavy-handed. There's moments that are big, there's moments that are small, that spiritually pay respect to Chadwick's T'Challa, and I think fans are really going to recognize those moments as they watch this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was one of my movies that I was so excited for 2022, especially from the MCU specifically, and it did not disappoint. This was everything I wanted it to be in the respect of legacy to Chadwick, delivering a fond farewell to a king on screen and off screen, and a message that while we may have our differences, while we may disagree or even fight, the one thing that does bind us together is grief and trauma, and we can find strength in knowing that we can share that together and we can help each other move forward as one. So I am going to be giving this a 5 out of 5 purple heart-shaped herbs, because this movie...
I'm shocked, dude. 5 out of 5?
I know.
I'm shocked.
I'm like so fanboy, but like this movie delivered on everything that I was anticipating, and I think this was the MCU movie of the year for me that I was very excited for, and it delivered. So I'm very happy.
Very cool. This, in my opinion, is the best MCU film of Phase 4. Bar none. I absolutely think that. And that's something, honestly, after Spider-Man No Way Home, I was not sure if that would even be possible. But, you know, with a masterwork of a score, this movie is gripping from start to finish. And I just, I enjoyed every single moment of it. I felt so much watching this movie. You know, grief, anger, sadness, all of these feelings and these themes are so excellently handled in such a mature way, and they give us a story that I don't think I'll ever forget, and I'll never forget these performances from the entire cast, but standouts most specifically, I thought Angela Bassett, Tenoch Huerta Mejia, and of course Letitia Wright they're just phenomenal. They are absolutely phenomenal. This movie is more than just a worthy successor to the first one, and Ryan Coogler yet again delivered on giving us a movie that I think, with some great, albeit light, MCU setup, some of the most incredible action sequences, and a cast with such dedicated performances. But it's also a movie that honestly just has such an important message, a message that makes you think beyond the action and the spectacle, a message that transcends any particular character or performance, and it's just simply to be better to each other so that we can help each other move on even when it feels impossible. And it rings through the entire movie and in every single sort of decision that these characters make, and it's so lovely. Honestly, this movie is really special, and I can't wait to watch it again, dude. I'm so excited to watch this again and again in the theaters, and then again and again at home. Absolutely. 5 out of 5 purple heart-shaped herbs. Well, that is it. We hope you enjoyed this spoiler-free review for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on this movie or any of the shows we cover, or if you just want to write in and tell us that we're Marvel shills and we'll give every Marvel thing a 5
we'd
out of
love
5.
to hear from you guys for sure.
We'd love to hear from you. Absolutely. If we're not already hearing from you on Twitter, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of activate a spear, a big vibranium spear, and throw it over to Justin to let you know how you can
I've
reach
missed
us.
that spear because it's a dangerous weapon, but they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at geekcentricyt or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Keep in mind, we have a ton of other episodes covering the latest and greatest movies and shows out now, like we've got our recent spoiler-free review for Tales of the Jedi, Clerks 3, Black Adam. We also have a spoiler-free review out now for the Netflix series Blockbuster, if you want to check that out. But if you're still in the spooky season, I know Halloween's long over at this point by the time you're listening to this. It might be a distant memory, but maybe you want to relive it. I don't know, you want to watch something that you're not sure what to watch and you want it to be spooky. Well, we also have our spoiler-free and filled reviews for Werewolf by Night, as well as our spoiler-free reviews for Hocus Pocus 2 and Wendell and Wild. And we have a ton of interviews, like our most recent interview with Mabel Cadena and Alex Livinali, who played Namora and Atuma in the film. So you can tune in to hear, where they'd rather take a vacation, Wakanda or Talokan. Justin, I've been meaning to ask you, where would you rather take a vacation?
Oh, that's
Wakanda or Talokan?
I think I'm a land person, so I would definitely want to go to Wakanda. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot to see and do there, and
very
some
cool.
great food to eat.
I can get pretty lazy at times. I've given up on walking, so I think I would just maybe jump into the ocean and just float around.
I don't know. Swimming is
Talokan.
kind of like walking underwater, I guess.
That's true. It might be more work.
Yeah, I think it's more work.
Give me a little jet suit or something. I don't know. Anyways, you can check out those interviews both here on podcast services and on YouTube at youtube.com/Geekcentric. Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this review. And as we say, love ya.
Peace.
Wakanda forever.